Hello again, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. It's just wonderful to be out here in person, isn't it? And doing this as a community. Senior candidates, senior neighbors, we haven't been able to do this for a while, so thank you so much for being here. I'm Janet Manco again from the Millerton News. The Millerton News is part of a local, community-owned, because we're newly nonprofit, company called the Lakeville Journal Company. Millerton News has been part of it since 1972. We are proud to sponsor candidate forums throughout our coverage areas in New York and Connecticut just about every year. Last year was the first year in a long time we weren't able to, so we're very happy to be here today. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters of the Mid-Hudson region for being here, making this evening happen, and special thanks to Kevin Gardner, who worked tirelessly to bring this all together. Kevin to thank him. He's just amazing. Of course, thanks also to Weebatuck High School for stepping in when we couldn't do this in the town hall and allow us to be in this auditorium. Otherwise, this couldn't have happened. And gratitude to the candidates who are willing to serve Armenia. The real work happens once the election is over on November 2nd. Please remember to vote. I will introduce first Dare Thompson from the League of Women Voters. She will help sort questions, and Dare is a past president of the Mid-Hudson League of Women Voters. She is going to explain the format for tonight. Dare?
Yes, I'll explain that we had all the candidates come up and draw for where they're going to sit, starting over there at number 1, and then they're going to speak and answer the questions in the order that you see here, except that number 1 will not have to start the next time, number 2 will start the next time, number 3 the time after that, and so forth. And usually the candidates help the moderator keep track of that, because it's they usually know even better than the moderator can, but we try to make sure this is totally fair. The question, I think I'm not going to be able to handle any more questions. It's going to be hard to read all the ones I got. So unless you have something really pressing, I may not be able to do anything with it. So I hope these questions cover your particular interest. We gave people only a minute so we would be able to answer, so that we would be able to cover a lot of territory. And usually people say the most important thing in the first minute, and you will learn pretty much what their feelings are by then, and then we can move on to a lot of different topics, and you'll have a sense of the range of the person. We're doing that with opening and closing statements. The opening statement really gives them the chance to say, this is who I am, and then the closing statement, they can repeat that, or some variation on it, or they can clarify something that has happened before that they just want to answer a question more fully, or say that they disagree with something, or whatever. That's their time. If they go over the timekeeper is there. Doug, raise your hand. My husband Doug and I have both been in the league for almost half of its life. I've been in, next year it will be 50 years. I started in my 20s. And he joined the year men were admitted in 74. So we're lifers. But he keeps time, and you'll see the candidates paying close attention to him, because he will give them a 15-second warning that they need to be wrapping up their answer. If people go over, it's usually the audience that judges. The moderator will remind them. The stop sign will be up there where you can all see it. Usually that's enough pressure to cause people to stop pretty quickly. We try not to stop a person right in the middle of a vital sentence, but the sentences aren't allowed to just keep going. So I think that's everything you need to know. I often moderate. I was a state president too, so I've done a lot of this. And I'm thrilled tonight to have one of my favorite partners in crime here, Yolanda Johnson, who is Dutch and grew up in New Zealand, so she has her own interesting perspective on politics in America. So come on up, Yolanda. Thank you to everybody that's participating.
as you can see, between the three of us, we have to do major mic adjustments. I'm also a civil engineer and a traffic person. So the way the traffic is going to go tonight is each of the town council candidates, in the order in which they pulled straws, which is Leah Blackman, Brad Libellard, Katherine Lee, James Morris, and James Vitello, the first person will come up the stairs, will stand at this podium, give their first minute opening remark, and then take their seat. So they will all be seated by the time they've finished their 1 minute opening remarks. At that point, I will come up here and I will ask the first question to get us going for the evening. I did want to say that the League recently celebrated its 100th anniversary in New York State, and the League of Women Voters grew out of the women's suffrage movement, where we had to wait for a long time and beg men to give us permission to vote. So we've had 100 years now, and one of the, besides voter education on issues, moderating debates is one of the League's favorite activities, and we used to moderate the presidential debates at the national level. So you're getting a taste of how the rules that the League has come up with to try and make debates fair. So one of them is the appearance of all the candidates who are running in an election to be here. And one candidate who is running has been excused from tonight's performance. She had a death in the family. Normally, that would have been a reason to not have this debate, but we're not using that. We're allowing that as a special situation. So I think we're ready to go, and I think if the 5 candidates would line up, Leo, Brad, Katherine, James, Morris, and is it?
You turn the mic up.
Jamie Vitiello. Who is handling the sound? Who has control over whether the mic is working or not? Is there a sound person in the house?
Better. Yeah.
The only control we have over the mic is the on and off switch. That's it.
The only control we have over the mic
That's better.
is the on and off switch. Okay, which makes me realize that I have to be fairly close for the mic to pick it up. And when the candidates speak, you're actually each taking turns speaking into the same mic. So for the sake of COVID safety, shall we try and speak into the mic with our masks on? No. Not very good, right? Wipes? Can we get wipes? Oh, there's wipes here.
There are wipes here, but I feel like the point is that respiratory particles not be. Yay! There's some right there too, I think.
I'm being tested on my ability to start listening. Not very good. I don't think this one's suitable. It's not going to work.
Issue one wipe for each candidate, they can then use it whenever they're in the microphone.
We'll try and figure that one out. A more experienced white person is tackling the problem.
speak to you about the questions too. And maybe Sandy.
All right, let's do the best we can and hope that none of the candidates are currently infected, and therefore none of them will be able to infect each other.
Yay. All right.
I guess that means I should start.
You can start your 1 minute. Keep an eye on the time.
My name's Leah Blackman. I'm a retired architect. I've had a house in Passaic with my husband for 18 years, and I've been volunteering in Amenia pretty much the whole time. I was the zoning board chair, now the planning board, the housing board chair, and on the wastewater committee. Without wastewater downtown, there can be no economic development. All business owners in the downtown support it. This is a good time to start that project. Systems have become more efficient and less costly since the last attempt. And a district can be designed for commercial properties and subsidized residential ones. And there's grant money. We also have a housing crisis. You all know it's near impossible for a working person to buy or rent in Amenia. We can't continue this way. Seniors, Weebatuck grads, and essential workers can't afford to stay. And without new families, there's no one to staff our 2 fire departments or restaurants and farms. Our wastewater, does that mean 15 seconds or a minute?
15 seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry. Our wastewater and housing problems must be solved. Silo was to have built both, but did neither. I have experience to make them happen. I want to bring new energy to the town board and to plan for our future.
All right, is there an expert in the house?
Where's Janet?
All righty.
You lost your tie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Libellard, and I gotta say this is really nostalgic for me to be on this stage again. Sorry about that. I'm an alumni of Weebatuck, and the really weird thing about this right now, my chemistry teacher is sitting right there. No, this is very interesting. So let me read you what I have, if you can take a little bit of your time. I left Amenia to pursue a career in nursing in Troy, New York. From there, after I graduated, I went to New York City and followed a career in real estate. In 1989, I opened my own local office. I've been on several committees, organizations over the years. The Millerton Northeast Library, the Lions Club, Wastewater Committee, and the ZBA in Armenia, Zoning Board of Appeals, as I am today. My goal in running for town council is to apply my experience in an entrepreneurial spirit and provide better opportunities for a better future in Armenia. My roots, my history, and my future are Armenia. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Katherine Lee. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thanks to the League of Women Voters and to the Millerton News for making this event possible. It feels strange and wonderful to get together. I am excited to be here for 3 reasons, because I've been here since 2018 as a resident of Passaic, and I love it. And I really feel like over the past couple of years, there's been amazing energy mounting in this community, and it's right on the cusp of big changes, big things moving forward. And I think that it just takes a little bit of a push and a bit of energy, and there's a massive new community moving in. So a few things that I wanted to say is that for all of the people who live in Amenia, including the newbies, the people who have found fantastic community here, I'm here to work for you. I know that in one of our listening tours, we heard that people are afraid of Silo Ridge getting in the lion's share of the voice. Well, I'm here for the everybody. And I'm here to create a connected community with technology, and I'm here to help support some of the things that Leo said about building infrastructure for growth, faster broadband, better green energy, better sewage management. We can do it all. So let's go, Amenia. Woo-hoo!
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Morris. My real name is James, but I don't like to be called James. People that call me James are usually trying to sell me something, so I'm just Jim Morris. I've had a connection with Amenia going back to the 50s, when I came up here with my parents for weekends. And in 1985, I built a log home in Amenia with my oldest son and some firemen from Yonkers. And then after my youngest son doubled the size of the house, my wife and I moved here in 2013. I'm a graduate of Villanova University and St. John's University School of Law. I've been a practicing lawyer for over 50 years. And I practiced with a New York firm for several years before going out on my own. I've been a solo practitioner now since 1995. I've spent most of my career with the United States Olympic Committee as outside counsel and then as a volunteer. I finally retired from the USOC as president of the Bobsled Federation in 2002, and I have no personal agenda for the town. I'm just trying to help out with my background and my experience as a lawyer. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jamie Vidiello, and thank you all for coming tonight. I'm running to bring compassion, competence, common sense, and independence to our local government. I've spent my life founding and running a very large-scale business and simultaneously serving government here in Dutchess County. I've been the Dutchess County Commissioner for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I've been the audit chair of the entire Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I'm currently the Dutchess County Deputy Civil Defense Coordinator, and I'm also currently a special advisor to the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office Drug Task Force. I'm running because I actually believe in government, but I believe that government is at its best when it's small, when it's efficient, and when it's smart, and when it believes in its own people. And I believe in the people of Armenia. I know how to manage complex finances. I know how to stick to a budget. I know how to get things done. And I'm running to bring those skills to the town of Armenia. Thank you very much. I look forward to working with everybody, and I look forward to the debate questions or the questions tonight for all the candidates.
Question number one. and each of the candidates is going to get up and speak to that mic in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 minute each. Okay? And the first question is, how will you improve communication between the town board and the citizens of Amenia?
That's a good one. I've been frustrated that I often find out about things later than I wish I had in Amenia. I know we have a website and it's just been updated, but I wish we had, as a town like Sharon does, a regular newsletter from the town to just let people know what's going on. I think that there is not enough effort put into reaching out to people and having events for people in the town. Hopefully, if COVID lessens, that can happen more regularly. And I also just feel like we need to listen to people. When I was an architect, that was something that I had to do a lot of. And I think it's really important to try to get consensus amongst people before you start on a substantial project. And we have a number of substantial projects ahead of us here in town, and I'd like people to come and participate in that.
This has been a major concern of mine for a long time, and it's getting more complicated. Years ago, you had a local newspaper. That was it. That's all you had. So everybody went to the local newspaper. Communication was a bit more simple. Today, it's multifaceted. I don't have the answer for this. COVID has made it even worse. But I know I want to strive to find answers to make this better. I know that cutting programs, community programs, is not the answer. I know that bringing people together is my goal. Thank you.
This is my jam. So I work in communications, and I think that there are a few different ways that we can address this with technology. I know that a number of towns in this environment and also upstate use things like Nextdoor, but what we need to do is actually ask people, how do they prefer to hear about what's going on? What kind of stuff do they need to hear about? Is it about public projects? Is it about fun stuff that's going on? That's the stuff that I care about, the local culture bit. I mean, it can be science, it can be whatever people want to use, however people want to be reached, that's what we need to be going after, and I highly subscribe to more of a technology-forward way of doing this, so love what Leah's saying about potentially having a town newsletter, flyers, signs, whatever it takes, whatever people want, and the town board has recently updated the website. That's going to be a great central place too, and we just need to, set up the technology so it's easy to update. Keep it up to date all the time.
Actually, as a current town board member, I think the communication is pretty good. Our names, our telephone numbers are on channel 22. Anybody can call us anytime that they want. Our meetings are open. They're also on channel 22, broadcast several times a week. So COVID has made it difficult, I think, for a lot of people to really get around and do things. But I think that we have set up a situation that's pretty good as far as communication is concerned. Thank you.
A town board in a modern age should be hyper accessible. You should have a multitude of ways that you can get in touch with your town board that are convenient for you. There should be a website that you can ask questions and you can get answers in real time. Of course, you should be able to come to town board meetings. You should be able to see those things on public access television. But you need a way to get iterative dialogue with your town board and to work together. That's been a big part of the problem of this town, is there's a lack of transparency with the town board. Even when you submit FOIL requests to get information, the information is often not forthcoming and you feel stymied. And so we've got to change the tenor of that so we all feel like we're working together and that we aren't splintered And when we do that, we are the best version of ourselves. So I would certainly implement means of being hyper accessible as a board member and as a board, both through technology and through old-fashioned in-person communications.
For the next question, the first person to speak will be Brad, then in the same order, and Leo, you will be last. And the question is, what would you like to accomplish in 4 years serving on the town board, and what is your plan to get it done? I love these really simple questions.
Exactly what I was thinking. Well, this is definitely new for me, and although, as I said, I've been running a business, a multifaceted business since 1989, I do have some strategies, of course. I really think that I have goals. I mean, there are infrastructure goals, there are communication goals that we just talked about. Transparency is one of the main reasons I wanted to run. Another main reason I wanted to run, and this is a funny one, that nobody else was running. Well, that's certainly changed. And I am so grateful to see this many people running for our town. It's wonderful. I mean, this involvement is the beginning, I think, of something good. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
I think in 4 years, what success would look like is if you walk down the streets of Amenia and people were saying, wow, can you even recognize this place? 4 years down the road, that it feels way more energized, even more than we're feeling right now. I think we can do this, more connected community, more of the feeling of growth that we're already starting to get, that momentum. I think we should be building on that, and in 4 years' time, we should feel the results of what we're already starting to get that little spidey sense about.
I think the wastewater project is really the most important thing that we can do in this town. If we want to attract business, and we want business to stay, I think it's really something that we have to do. I'm a liaison from the town board to that committee. It's comprised of very good people, very knowledgeable people in the area, and I think that we can get it done in the next 4 years. I certainly hope so. I think it's the most important thing that we can do. Thank you.
The list is long, but it's concise. We need to bring businesses back to town. In order to do that, we have to have clear rules for a business to come to town. I hear over and over again that the rules are in motion, they're never the same, and thus these business owners do not want to come to Amenia right now. We need workforce housing. Workforce housing will bring people into this town. It will also bring down the overall cost of housing because we do have a housing shortage, especially in rental housing. We need to take on and get that wastewater project ultimately finally done. We need to instill fiscal responsibility and control our budget. We spend too much, we spend too frivolously, we spend too much on emergency orders, no bid contracts. We need to provide more assistance to seniors. We need to be able to bring food to seniors who can't get out. We need to be able to provide transportation to get to the stores for seniors who aren't able to transport themselves. And we need more youth programming. All this is really what we need to do, is collaborate more. We need to work as a team, and we need to revive this community. Thanks.
The things that I'm most anxious to get started on are, as I said before, wastewater and housing, affordable housing. Both of those are really critical, and as chair of the housing board, I've been working with Hudson River Housing to try to locate properties where housing can be built. It's very hard to do that without a wastewater system, so those things are linked in my head. I think that it's, again, really important for the town to make this happen. I think that there is an enormous amount of potential in our downtown that's not tapped. I think that there could be great improvements made in terms of what happens downtown. 100 years ago, downtown was thriving. There was a movie theater, a department store, and a butcher, among other businesses. And I think as more people are able to work from home post-COVID, that it's possible to have residents who live here full-time instead of just weekenders. And if we had broadband, that could keep them in the area and keep them busy.
Since we have quite a few candidates, and I know you guys like the people who are here, which is fine, but if you don't applaud, we can get through more of the questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
Applaud at the very end. Then they're really good candidates. They deserve applause. We'll just give it to them at the end. The next question, Katherine will be the first one to speak, and we'll go that way. These are two questions. They're both about wastewater. I'll read them both. They're kind of similar. How will you deal with wastewater problem in Armenia, and can you demonstrate your commitment to this issue? Like blood, you know. Please speak to the issue of wastewater treatment and its connection to needed enhancements of commerce in our town. Some of you have already done so. This is your opportunity to go into a little bit more detail.
Looks like I'm here first on this one. So I have to say that out of this board of candidates, I'm probably the least qualified with wastewater. However, it is an issue that Leo and I have spoken at length about. I am very passionate about that, and it is in fact a very, very significant barrier to entry for small businesses moving into the Amenia area. And so I think that what we need to do is allocate more budget and more energy in terms of time, resources, and board thinking into lobbying the county to make sure that we get permits to businesses that are seeking wastewater solutions so that they can get started in Armenia, because that's something that really slows people down by years. It's not okay, and we need to be putting some more money behind it. It's not like there's not money for it, we just need to be allocating it there.
The wastewater issue has been around for a long time. Somehow, some way, it fell by the wayside in years past. But I think right now that there is a commitment on the part of the people in the town and the people on the committee to really get it done. And I'm confident that it will get done. As I said before, the committee is dedicated to getting this thing accomplished, and it's going to happen. Thank you.
Wastewater is really a complicated fiscal issue. You have to understand bonding laws and who you can charge for the wastewater usage in order to really understand how you're going to solve the wastewater. We're going to have to really think about the town hall complex, and if that's the best use of that land and other lands around, in order to consider additional development that you can partner with a developer, likely of workforce or affordable housing, to derive funds from such a project in order to help fund wastewater. You will not fund it. The taxpayers of what would be the wastewater district will almost never be able to afford the bill that would come if they had to solely support a wastewater treatment plant. So you've got to figure out some other solutions that allow you to put that cost on a developer or other developers, or you likely won't solve wastewater. And you also have to understand the bonding and the ability to borrow in order to solve wastewater, which we can do. But we'll need to really explore all the real estate opportunities that can help support and fund wastewater in Armenia.
I disagree with Jamie that working with the developer is the only way to get wastewater. In Millerton, they used the billing of businesses to subsidize the residential parts of the system. The last time this was tried in Amenia, it was voted down because people who had their own septic didn't want to pay an additional amount of money to a town system. But in Millerton, they are making this work now. They've run the numbers. There's also federal infrastructure money. There's supposed to be state money focused on this, and there's supposed to be county money focused on this. And we have a really excellent engineer who has now started working for the town of Amenia to design a system to update our last feasibility study. Also, I just want to do a shout out to Darlene Reamer, who's sitting in the front row, who worked on this for what seems like decades, certainly a very long time, with a lot of energy. I think the problem is that or the good thing is that I think we're in a different place in terms of people understanding the problem, especially with climate change and water tables rising, and it just has to be addressed.
Oh, no clapping.
I am on the wastewater committee, and actually I'm part of Darlene's wastewater committee. And we've been through several studies on this, and what I'm hearing tonight, I'm grateful to hear, because we have to stop. We have to come up with solutions, not problems on this. Any good planner will tell you that any growth or plan starts in the center of the town and branches out. These planners have been to our town meetings. They've told us how to do this. And it works in other towns, but the issue, not for trying, a lot of very intelligent people have put this to the test. It all comes down to the same primary thing: funding. Where's the money coming from? If this is the time when we can get the funding, this may be the time we get this done. Thank you.
The next question, the first person to speak will be Jim. Wait, it's going to take me a while. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the same topic. Okay. I think I'll let you go. I think it would make sense for this question to give everybody 2 minutes.
Yes, I agree.
That makes sense. All right. Why do the residents of Silo Ridge want to be assessed at less than their property value? I have a modest home and am assessed at 100%. Are you going to hold Silo Ridge to paying their fair share of taxes? And how is this conflict of interest being reconciled? How would you handle future projects and taxation issues similar to Silo Ridge that when they come before the town board? Many of us in Armenia are confused about the political impacts of Silo Ridge. If elected, what will you do to ensure fair share of taxes? And do you or your spouse work for Silo Ridge or own property in Silo Ridge? And if so, how will that affect your decision-making on the appointment of Armenia's tax assessor in 2025, given the legal challenges facing the town?
Well, I can answer one of the last ones first. I do not own any property in Silo Ridge.
The yellow card will be a half-minute warning, and you each have 2 minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right.
The people in Silo Ridge paid a lot of money for their property. A vacant piece of land there, I think, was in the area of $1 million. They are assessed, and we believe that the homes that are being put on there are very expensive homes as well. Our town assessor has no axe to grind with anybody. We are assessed at 100%, and Silo Ridge has got to pay their share of that. As you probably know, there is pending litigation right now, which Silo Ridge is really involved in and behind. It has cost the taxpayers of Armenia a fair amount of money in legal fees, and we are vigorously defending that action. And unfortunately, it costs legal fees to do it. As far as the future, I think that we all learned something by what we have experienced. And the experience with Silo Ridge, while it has been certainly beneficial in terms of the tax base, it has created some problems as well. I believe that the people that are running on the Amenia Strong ticket do have a conflict of interest. I served on the Ethics Committee of the United States Olympic Committee for a number of years. I have had many ethical problems that I had to solve as a lawyer over the years, and I believe that they have a conflict of interest, and I believe that that conflict of interest cannot be resolved in their favor. Thank you.
No clapping.
So I live in Silo Ridge, and I didn't know what I was stepping into when I moved into this town, living in Silo Ridge, given the history. But what I do know now is, if you look at the history, I think that both the developer and the town really should have handled this a lot better. There should have been a formalized agreement on whatever the deal was going to be on taxes. That didn't happen, and as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. I happen to be fine with my taxes in Silo Ridge. I'm not a participant in any of the lawsuits related to Silo Ridge. When I talk to people in Silo Ridge, I think the prevailing feeling is actually not that the taxes are too high. It's that the fact that Silo Ridge is now paying roughly, Silo Ridge residents are paying roughly 40% of the tax roll, with 59 houses roughly with C of O's. In a town that has 1,600 tax-paying houses, and that the town is still in some level of financial straits is sort of shocking. All of this influx of money came in, and then the opportunity was squandered. And the real point is, how do you not have this happen going forward? Because there's a lot more money to come in from Silo Ridge. That's the good news. There's only 50-something houses with C of O's. There's ultimately going to be 225. The average house in Silo Ridge is paying between $70,000 and $80,000 per freestanding house in Silo Ridge. This is a huge opportunity, and it's become, incredibly, a divisive issue, which makes no sense. The answer to so many of the problems that require money to fix them is the new houses that come into Silo Ridge, actually. We should be paving the way for those houses that were already scheduled to be built to be finished, so that we can derive that revenue and help solve wastewater, solve affordable housing, solve senior programming. The solution lies in additional tax revenue. That will come from there. So I don't think it's a thing that we need to think of in terms of conflict of interest. Let's get more money from Silo Ridge. I agree with that. And so I think we've got a lot of solutions and a lot of money that can help solve a lot of the problems that we have in the town.
Forget this part. I guess I beg to differ. I actually see this as a moral problem. I know that people who buy houses that are $2 or $5 or $10 million, and it's their third or fourth or fifth house, don't need a tax break. There are a lot of people in Amenia who do need a tax break. I volunteer at St. Thomas Food Pantry, and there's 150 families that rely on that every Friday to get through the week, to have enough food for their family. I've been walking around Tally-Ho, and there are lots of seniors that are on fixed incomes and disabled and are really concerned about the rents going up there. I just think for Silo to be, I hate to say it, but that's selfish, is outrageous, really. The taxes were assessed fairly. All of the prices of what those houses sold for was recorded. The tax assessor had all those numbers. There's something called fair market value that is used to set the assessments. And I just think Silo has not lived up to their part of the bargain. There were a lot of great promises made along the way with Silo Ridge, and I understand that the developer changed and the planning board may have given up on some of them, but unfortunately the things that really would have brought great things to Amenia, other than the taxes, which is the only thing that's left, were things like a hotel that would have brought tourist dollars. I just read that a vendor, someone who has a shop in Armenia, said that only 4 people from Silo Ridge have crossed the threshold in the 10 months he's been opened. I just don't think that the benefits that were promised have happened. I don't know how many people had jobs at Silo Ridge, but I'm doubting very much whether it's as many as were promised. I've heard really horrible things from contractors in Amenia that did work there and weren't paid for 3 months, and I think my mother always said that's how the rich stay rich. But in any event, I think that the situation is really ugly. I think we have to repair this relationship with Silo Ridge, but it starts by them getting over their sense of entitlement that they don't have to pay taxes like everyone else in the town.
Applause at the end.
Did he answer if he lives or works at Silo Ridge?
Oh, sorry, don't.
Well, I hope I can answer all the questions and remember them to begin with. First of all, my wife, Jean Libellard, is a publicist, and one of her clients is Silo Ridge. She also represents the Endometriosis Foundation of America and several other clients. She doesn't work for them, she's not on the payroll. And there are hundreds of people that work for that organization, and that's one of the reasons we even have a workforce here, because there are jobs. I graduated from this high school and left here as quick as I could because there was nothing. There were no jobs. I struggled with this same issue with my 2 boys, my 2 children, who actually, one works for me, one works for my wife, the publicist. I was a real estate appraiser for 10 years. I have a basic understanding what's going on, and this issue cannot be solved by anyone in this room. First and foremost, this is not a popularity contest. This is about doing a job that is right for our town and the growth of our town. Right now, I don't know what's going on fiscally, but it is a mess. I don't understand how we have all this tax revenue and yet we're not making all these changes and things we need to do. That's one of my goals. How am I going to get there? I don't know. But I will work with a team to get there. So I feel like I don't want to carry on about this issue, but this us and them scenario's got to end. We got to start working together to prosper. You know, and again, this is not a popularity contest. I don't care if you like me or if you don't. I don't care if I win or lose. I'm here because I believe in our town and I want to do the right things and I want to see us grow for my grandchildren, which could be happening soon. So, thank you.
Totally agree that it's not an us versus them, and it's not us versus them unless they get to pay less taxes than the rest of us. So it's a matter of fairness, really. And if we're gonna pay 100% of the taxes that we owe, then they should also pay 100% of the taxes they owe, especially if they have more money than God. So that's really, that's just kind of the end all be all of it. Let's make it just for everybody. And I do not work for Silo Ridge, perhaps unsurprisingly. I don't think that it's a bad thing for the community. I think it's potentially a very lovely thing for the community. It looks like a very, very lovely, prestigious, high-end property, a very nice place to live, and it could potentially be a very, very wonderful source of jobs for the community if they choose to participate on the same level as the rest of us, engage at the same level, pay their taxes fairly like the rest of us. Then great, then you are part of the community. There is no us versus them, it's just us.
Thank you. The next question, Jamie will get up and answer it, and I have chosen it specifically. With so much division and fighting in this country, how does this community, Amenia, come together and be different from the rest of this country, fostering collaboration instead of division? Isn't that a perfect question after the last one?
It's a great question. And you know what I've seen since I've come to Amenia is a lot of isms. There's a lot of classism, there's a lot of every kind of ism of vilifying the other person. And we've got to stop that. You know, Leo, going back to you, some things you said back there. I mean, I find it funny because I was listening to something you said in one of the committee meetings recently where you said one of the funny things in the survey, well, funny to me was just the number of people that listed a concern for crime as an issue in terms of selecting a new house, which I thought in Amenia is a little comic because usually the crime in Amenia is incest. That's so divisive. And please. It's exactly though what I'm saying. Let's not be that. Let's get together.
Get him off the stage.
Let's get together and let's work together. And let's stop these isms. Let's stop castigating different groups of people into different categories. Let's become one community, and we can get anything done if we do that.
Get him off the stage.
Please, this is a public forum. Please, let everybody speak.
I think that Armenia has always had some issues with division. I know there's always been a Wasaic-Armenia division, and there's an enormous range of people who live in Armenia, so I'm not entirely surprised that they don't all know each other, and they're not all, dancing kumbaya. But I think that by design, Silo Ridge is very different. It was supposed to be just like a hamlet in Armenia, which it was not. It sort of lost its way. It's basically a closed community that's designed to keep very wealthy people in and the rest of us out. I mean, that's really the way it's designed. I went on the Discovery Land Company website, and they have 25 of these. And, I just think it's sort of ironic for Jamie to talk about division when there's this island, this principality dropped in the middle of Armenia, where none of the people who live there could possibly participate in the life of this community. No one will want to do that. And throw stones at us for not being welcoming. I mean, it's kind of insane to me. I mean, it's unfortunate that this community evolved the way it did, rather than the way that our comprehensive plan said it should grow. But it did, and I think the fact that at this point, Silo is putting up its own candidates because it didn't get what it wanted in terms of taxes is really shameful. I mean, this is a kind of hostile takeover of our community, and that will do it.
Yes.
Point of order, the moderator.
Yes?
Would you be kind enough to ask that gentleman if the quote attributed to him is true or false?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even get to that.
Would you like to answer that?
Sure, I'm sorry.
Obviously.
Nothing to do with the question.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the question. Why do you guys?
No, it's fine, it was asked. I know that my buddy Damien Gutierrez, who I have some disagreements with here and there, has been shopping around a video clip of that meeting and showing it to whoever will take a chance, whoever was willing to look at it. I've probably said about 10,000 words before the town board, and that was 1 in 10,000. It was a bad joke, but I don't feel like I'm unworthy to participate in the political process on the basis of that. I would also say that it's important to know the context of that, which is that I was presenting a report that the Affordable Housing Committee did to the town board, and I was explaining what the results of that were. And I actually found it very strange that people thought there was a crime problem in Armenia when there's very little evidence of that, at least not, serious crime. So that was all that meant, and I think that it's a mountain over a molehill.
Mr. Libellard? Mr. Libellard? And the original question, I'm going to rephrase it. Because we're not being very good at answering this question. With so much division and fighting in this country, how does this community, Armenia, come together and be different from the rest of this country, fostering collaboration instead of division?
Well, to start with what I'm witnessing here tonight is not that. It's not even close. And the old phrase, loose lips sink ships. You can't just go out in community and say things that could offend people that can't go out in communities, if you take this position, that is. You can't give your opinion, your personal opinion, as a member of this board, because you will end up being in a lawsuit. That's happened. So I just think that we all have to vote and choose carefully. Now, we're looking for a character of people. Everybody is qualified to do this job. I think we all, as a board, getting all these people, my goal is to work with people on the board for solutions, not to bring up problems. And I want to segue back on something I forgot to say about the tax issue, if I may. How long?
Actually, why don't you weave it into your next answer to the next question?
Right, okay.
Because I think you're at the red card level.
Well, that was...
Make a note to yourself and weave it in. Katherine?
Tough question, huh? From my own personal experience, this has actually been an exceedingly diverse and welcoming community to me and my family, and I think that there's no reason that it should be any other way. It is not only about politics, and I think that that is one of the main division points. I know that's ironic because I'm sitting on a local political stage right now saying this, but the connections that we make within the community are not purely around politics, and if that's where people are living and dying these days, that is not what I found in Amenia, and I found a really, really deep, strong, and true community here, and that crosses political boundaries, and I think that we can continue to focus on those things that bring us together, and not just necessarily petty political divides.
One of the reasons why I wanted to live in Amenia was because of the people here. As I told you before, I came here as a boy with my parents, and then built the home up here with my son and some firemen from Yonkers, and then decided to live here permanently beginning in 2013. Amenia is not a big city. It's not a place where there is a whole lot of division, as I see it. I mean, I think the people up here are pretty friendly, and I really have had a wonderful experience living here for the last 8 years, and I don't see Amenia having any of the problems that we really see in a country that is divided. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I can tell you that on the town board we all get along just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. It's 8 o'clock. We also have a supervisor's debate. We started a little bit after 7. I have 2 more questions that I'm going to ask the candidates. So we're back to Leo being the first person. And Leo, your question is, or everybody, your question.
Remember, we have the closing too. So.
Oh, and the closing.
So maybe 1 more.
2 questions.
Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Amenia's comprehensive plan states, agriculture is the single most important and easily lost feature that distinguishes Amenia's landscape as a rural community. In light of the comprehensive plan statement, what will you do to protect and maintain the agricultural and rural nature of Amenia?
Well, let's see. I guess I've felt like I've been doing some of that as a member of the planning board. I have to say that that every time that Silo Ridge has been before the planning board, I've actually voted in favor of what they've presented. But we have seen a couple of projects recently where people were taking farmland, actively used farmland, and proposing to put a number of large houses on it, not affordable housing. And I think that as much as we can, we have to follow what are Dutchess County's guidelines and what are good planning guidelines, which is to cluster development on the edges of rural property. And I think that that's, that our code is written in a way that really pushes us to behave that way if it were followed. Thanks. I
personally feel that the protections are already in place. I think they've been in place for a long time, and I think that's why we've had such good growth in this community. It's beautiful here. And I would like to see those protections stay in place. Can I segue to my tax issue?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So I was listening to the conversations about the taxes, and a thought occurred to me, is if you own a large parcel of land, hundreds of acres, and have a property worth a lot, millions of dollars, you can, and you're farming it, you can get an ag exemption, for example, conservation easements, all these exemptions so you don't have to pay the full load of taxes. And I got thinking about Silo Ridge. They're raw tax. There are no exemptions. They pay the full load of whatever their assessment is, with no exemptions. And I just didn't know if people knew that. Thank you.
I agree with Brad that there are some protections in place for the agricultural community. We'd like to see those maintained for sure, because they're a deep part of the heritage of the area and something that I think everybody who lives in this community cares about. So we need to continue to make those incentives fair and possible for farmers and agricultural communities to survive here, and not just kick special exemptions and kickbacks to real estate development.
I think one of the real beauties of the area is that we are an agricultural area. The zoning, I think, in many areas is 5 acres, which is good. And I have 22 acres myself. And I think that we should limit the development of major construction sites. It's okay to build a house here and there in the town, and I'm all for increasing the population, but not by a great extent. It's a large town geographically, but it's a small town population-wise, and I think that it's pretty nice the way it is, and I wouldn't want to see any great further development of the town. Thank you.
I agree, the rural nature of Armenia is one of its great things. We need to maintain that. We need to work with the DLC, the Dutchess Land Conservancy, and the county to maintain large parcels that go up for sale or that cease to be used for farming as rural and agricultural. We need to, as Leo suggested, concentrate any kind of dense development as is appropriate in the master plan. That will help spur a healthy downtown, but also keep that development from spreading out into what's rural land that we all want to see preserved as rural and farmland.
I do want to apologize to all of you who wrote questions that are not going to get answered. Limited time, 5 candidates. The last question is very different from the other ones, and I do want to give the candidates a chance to answer it. And I think Mr. Libellard, you're the first one up. What is your position on a cannabis dispensary or marijuana lounge in Amenia or Wassaic, now or in the future?
Boy, this is going to be fun, I think. You can't have it both ways. You can't have a town run without tax revenues. Now, the way I understand this particular issue, that the towns have the ability to opt out before December 31st. Or it would be written into law. Interestingly enough, the state's only giving out, I think, 720 permits to do this in the state. So, but it does make it difficult in the future, I think, if they do opt out, to not be in line for tax revenue. You can't have it both ways. I've said that at planning board meetings. We have to maintain a tax base and tax revenue, and how do we do that? This is an option. This is a law. I mean, this is our state changing the laws. Are we going to say no? Are we going to adapt? What are we going to do? I don't know. But it's up to our current board to figure this one out, I believe. So, thank you.
I'm pro. The people who are going to be going to dispensaries anyway are going basically over the border to Massachusetts no matter what. So we might as well be collecting that tax revenue locally. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen with local people. Should be available to the people who need it and want it.
I'm all for medical marijuana. I'm diametrically opposed to recreational marijuana. It is an addictive drug. It has been proven to be an addictive drug. It is something that if it's used by young kids, even if they give it up, their brain cells are affected by it. It's not something that we need. It's not something that we should have. The minuscule amount of tax revenue that we would derive as a town is totally offset by the amount of other problems that would be created, both health-wise and safety-wise. So I'm opposed to it.
Well, I think we have to approach, first of all, as Brad said, this issue will be decided by the current town board before any new board is seated anyway. But that said, I think that you have to, in this instance, put your own personal morality aside on this. This is settled law, the legality of marijuana in New York State. We've seen other towns, Great Barrington had a lot of the same sort of structural and financial issues that Amenia has. Dispensaries were a big part of its ongoing revival. So I think you have to really give pretty serious consideration to it. I think regardless of your own personal moral stance on it, you have an obligation and a fiduciary duty to the people of Amenia to really consider the tax benefits of what is already decidedly legal in New York State. So while I haven't fully studied the issue, I would, if I were in the position of the current town board, likely at least put myself in the position of saying yes, so that the opportunity was there in the future if Amenia were to be awarded a dispensary.
Well, I have to agree with Brad on this one because I don't have a clear answer to this question. I've never been much of a marijuana smoker, but I also think, I think that we sell alcohol and we have bars and have for an incredibly long time. Cigarettes are legal, and although people don't smoke them in restaurants anymore. I think that the country's position on these things has changed over time, and so I would decide when I have to decide, but I certainly haven't figured that out yet.
Closing remarks, 1 minute each. Katherine, you're up.
Just to go back to the cannabinoid thing, I think that we all know people who have struggled potentially with the opioid crisis in the past few years, and I think that it's actually a relatively safe option. Certainly it should still be regulated populations for medical use, but it is a much safer alternative than opioids, which have destroyed many, 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 many lives. So just to go back to a point which I think is really, really important, regardless, really, really appreciate the time and energy that you guys are putting into local politics. We want to do the right thing for the community. So regardless of where your vote goes, we want to support Amenia and make sure that we make the right decisions. It's not down the political line at all.
There are three things that I really feel very important about. One is the wastewater. We've already talked about that quite a bit. The other is the restoration of the downtown Amenia area. It looks pretty bad. It needs, at the very least, a lot of those buildings need a paint job. And many of them need a whole lot more than that. The third thing is cannabis. There isn't one major health organization in the United States that is in favor of recreational marijuana. Not one. And the amount of tax revenue is 13%, 9% of which goes to the state, 4% is divided among the towns and the county. the amount of tax revenue that the town of Amenia would get would be very, very small, and the cost would be very great. Thank you.
First of all, thank everybody for coming out tonight, and thank all the candidates. It's certainly good to see people participating in the process, no matter who you vote for. People participating in the process will push all of us to do better, to collaborate more, to be more creative, and to get things done. So thank everybody for participating. Look, I think that we're on the precipice of a lot of great solutions for the core problems that we've identified tonight. I think we all understand that we've been spending, in many instances, more money than we should in not necessarily the right areas, and we've got to refocus. We've got to get control of the budget. We've got to focus and prioritize the things that are going to take Amenia into the next generation. And if we prioritize those things, wastewater, affordable housing, workforce housing, the downtown, we can certainly get together and get these things done. And I think it's exciting to be on the precipice of that. So appreciate your guys' time and look forward to speaking to all of you throughout this process.
I'd like to agree with Jamie. I think that that the downtown of Amenia has great promise. I think that there is room to deal with wastewater and to develop commercial space and housing downtown. It would be a huge benefit to all of us to have that. I also wanted to say that that Amenia has been incredibly welcoming to me, and I've really enjoyed all the friends I've made here over the years that I've lived here. It's an amazing community. It has an amazing history, from having Jewish farmers in the 1890s to the NAACP being founded at Troutbeck. And it's a really special place, and we need to protect it and keep it as friendly as it was. So, so I hope you'll all vote.
I'm very thankful for the people who are already revitalizing the center of Amenia. A lot's happened in the last few years. A lot is happening, and the businesses are thriving there that are there. A lot more is coming in, and I believe that a good board can help foster that process even more. I would like to be part of a board, part of a team that works together and respects each other and treats each other with respect. Because I think once we can get over those minor hurdles, we can do a lot of things. I'm hoping for your vote. If I don't get it, I don't get it. I'm still gonna live in Amenia. I love Amenia. I've been here my whole life, probably the rest of it, but thank you so much.
So she will speak first. The amount of time to speak is exactly the same as for the town board candidates. 1 minute opening remarks, 1 minute answers to questions, and 1 minute closing remarks. And if your written remarks are too long, do the first half in the beginning and the second half at the end. So Victoria goes first.
As Town of Amenia Supervisor since 2014, I have been honored to serve the residents in the town I love. Realizing the value of education, after earning my Marist College Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, I continued taking Association of Towns and New York State Comptroller's Office classes to gain the knowledge to administer town government business. Grants have been a priority under my leadership, acquiring $71,150,000 CDBG sidewalk and DOT $250,000 Wasaic Trail of the Train grants. Highway garage land goal was accomplished by working with multiple state agencies to secure 5 acres of land for $7,000. Working with my town board colleagues and being available 24/7 to address the needs of the residents is what you can expect from me.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Millerton News for hosting this evening. I'm Julie Doran, candidate for Supervisor. 26 years in Dutchess County, 2 kids in the Weebtuck schools, 30+ years in management and real estate. I believe I'm the best person for the job of town supervisor. I've grown increasingly concerned with the town's out-of-control spending and higher taxes while watching the town cut vital youth and senior programs. The downtown is decaying, but we can turn this around. The time is now. Thank you, and I look forward to receiving your questions.
Keep the mic, because you're going to go first on the next question. Because there's only 2 of you, each time after you finish speaking, when you're the second person, you'll be first on the next question, okay? So the first question is, can you tell us what you would change or do differently if you're elected town supervisor?
Thank you. I would be transparent and a strong communicator. I would work to bring unity to this community. Supervisor Parodi alienated herself by not working well with the fire department and local businesses and the residents. When she cut $40,000 from the rec program, this community came together to formulate a plan and provide this well-needed resource to our children. Maplebrook School joined forces with community leaders and businesses like Four Brothers, Sharon Audubon, and Silo Ridge. This is a great example of how we can put forth a vision that focuses on Amenia NY residents.
Can you tell us what you would change or do differently if you're elected town supervisor, or in your case, re-elected?
In the first place, there's no alienation between the fire department. And as far as doing everything differently, the only thing that I can think of differently is that the 2022 budget is going to be under the tax cap. And all of the recreation lines are restored. The only reason they were taken out is because we expected less revenue and we didn't want to overstate our revenue. And because of the pandemic, had extra expenses that we didn't expect. But we feel like we're on a good path going forward with the town of Amenia. We work with working of all the committees. You know, we're looking forward to doing workforce housing and wastewater.
Keep the mic. You're going to be first on this question. Do you believe it's more important to be fiscally conservative or to make significant investments in town programs and infrastructure with taxpayer funds?
I believe in being fiscally conservative and staying under the tax cap so we can get taxes lower. And there are multiple opportunities with grants and infrastructure funding from the state and federal, such as the American Rescue Funds. So I think you have to walk a fine line. You want to keep taxes down so that it is affordable for people to live in Amenia, and you need to look for outside sources, which I have done multiple times to look for grants. And now that there's more infrastructure money in the state budget and an infrastructure plan in the federal government, we have a chance to be able to meet our goals.
although I do think it's important to be fiscally conservative, I think that the town board has cut a little too deep. Just gutting youth and senior programs. I really think we need to take another look at that, definitely. The spending is out of control, so we definitely need to take a look at that. And you need to be a little more conservative there, that's for sure.
Please keep the mic. It's okay. By the time we're done, we'll all be good at this, including me turning this off. Next question. Do you believe it's... Oh, I did that one. See? How much money has the current lawsuit by Silo Ridge residents cost the taxpayers so far? And is there an expected final legal cost when the proceedings come to a conclusion? And I'm not sure if both of you have access to that information, but give it a go.
Okay, I don't know what that monetary amount is, but I will say it could be reduced. Supervisor Perotti was warned not to hire the current tax assessor, and when the town did not do its due diligence, our overall assessments here in Amenia are up to $1 billion currently, and that is why residents are coming forward and filing suits with the town.
Actually, the town did its due diligence and did not listen to the Silo Ridge attorney, who did not want us to appoint our current assessor, who has 30 years experience and for 17 years has won an Equity and Excellence Award for assessment. It's our due diligence. We did our due diligence when we interviewed him. We had an elected assessor who gave Silo Ridge very favorable rates that shouldn't have happened. And then our assessor came in with 30 years experience and contacted the New York State Real Property, and who told him and worked with them to set things straight. And that's where we are today, because even though we did a settlement with Silo Ridge in 2019, which by law was supposed to be in place for 3 years, they've continued to file lawsuits to try to get 90% reduction in their assessment.
Point of order to the moderator, please.
Yes.
Could we get the dollar figure asked in the question?
Do you happen to know?
Actually, it's over $100,000.
Any guess at what the final figure might be, or?
Well, we're hoping it's not 200 if we can, if Silo Ridge will work with us on their claims and not demand such an outrageous assessment reduction.
Thank you. Please keep the mic. Please keep the mic. The next question is yours.
Excuse me. If this gentleman's able to ask a question, can other people in the audience ask a question too?
You know, you're right. The real method for asking questions is to submit them on the cards.
I didn't ask.
He didn't ask a question, he just wanted me to make sure I answered the question.
Simple question. And the moderator can choose whether or not the original question was answered, therefore didn't need to be expanded upon. Yeah, but then what I'm saying is that it should be equal among all the people here.
I hear you, but let's continue. And if I'm not doing a perfect job, I'm sorry, but he did ask a question that was on the paper and that had not been answered. And thank you for bringing that to our attention and giving the supervisor an opportunity to answer. And I'll get better at this. How can we start raising money and awareness through walks or other activities for very important causes such as Alzheimer's, dementia, heart disease, suicide prevention, gay, liber pride, and similar issues?
I think if that's something that someone is interested in having done in the town of Amenia, they are more than welcome to come to a town board meeting and broach the subject. And we can work with them on that.
To further that, I would be willing to participate on a focus group to help get that started.
Actually, I only have 2 more questions, and then you'll each be able to make your closing statement. The next question is, how do you plan to solve the current workforce housing issues?
Okay. I do agree there is a great need for workforce housing in Amenia. I know that Silo Ridge made a commitment to the town of Amenia to pay $611,000 in lieu of workforce housing. They are at about 25% construction now, so I'm aware that they are currently in negotiations with the town to pay them $61,000. Consider this. The town hall building is 22,000 square feet. No other township has such an enormous building costing the taxpayers $20,000 a month to maintain. I would consider that it only has 6 employees and the town board. Why don't we find them a smaller space for $3,000 a month, saving the taxpayers $200,000 a year, hire a developer to transform the space into either workforce housing or commercial space for rentable income.
Actually, the town hall has 16 employees, and most of those employees are employed in departments. And in these departments are provided essential services.
Part-time
And And I'm entitled to answer without you interrupting. There are, all the departments have a purpose. The town clerk collects licensing fees, marriage fees, and several other fees, and also taxes. The planning board also collects escrow to run and fees, and we adjudicate court cases, and they pay fines and fees. So each department has a purpose where it collects money to run town business and also provides essential services. Besides that, the town hall has blood drives. And so someone from social services comes every week.
Please, no interruption. Please. Can't hear.
Kind of hard to speak when you keep getting interrupted every 5 minutes. The town hall services all the residents in Amenia and collects needed revenue to run town business. It's just not a building with employees. And by the way, the people on the town board actually are elected.
I have one more question. Please keep the mic. We're not, the format is not a debate where you respond to what the previous person said, other than if you incorporate it in your answer to the next question. So you're essentially addressing the audience, not each other. The final question from the audience is, how do you plan to address the wastewater needs of the town of Amenia?
Currently, the town gave money to the wastewater committee for an engineer to conduct a feasibility study. Once the feasibility study is done, the engineer will also assist the wastewater committee and the town board in suggesting ways to finance a sewer district. But a sewer district has to be formed before you can move ahead with looking for funding to establish wastewater in the town of Armenia.
I've met with Jim Wright, the chairman of the wastewater committee, and I know that there was a site considered. This issue has been researched heavily in the past, and I will say that wastewater and sewer are very complex issues in that they would be costly to the residents that are affected, that are in that district. So what I would, if I was elected, I would work closely with the wastewater committee to find feasible alternatives that our residents could afford. This may be in the form of new funding, perhaps with these new legislative bills that are coming forward. I also heard about the American Rescue Plan. That could also be a feasible alternative.
Please keep the mic. You have answered the questions that were handed in by the audience. You now each have 1 minute to sum up what you want to say.
Perfect. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Millerton News again for hosting us, and to the residents who came to hear this vibrant exchange of issues. As community members, we are all concerned with the direction the town is headed. But with higher taxes and less services and youth and senior programs being cut, it signals that our town is headed in the wrong direction. We must elect good representatives who share our values for lower taxes and less spending. Please consider voting for me, Julie Doran, for Town Supervisor. Thank you.
I have a vision for the town of Amenia to make Amenia NY more pedestrian friendly and promote economic development by securing sidewalk and other grants. Plan for the future highway garage and salt shed by choosing one of the 11 engineering bids received. Upgrade the water district aging infrastructure, pump house, and wells with American Rescue Plan funds and other state and federal monies. Provide workforce housing so businesses, staff, and local families can afford to live and work here. I believe the future of the town of Amenia is bright. The groundwork for investing in infrastructure and quality of life improvements for all residents has been laid. I humbly ask for your continued support so we can move forward together to make the town of Amenia the best that it can be.
Thank you all. Thank you for navigating your fears and concerns about COVID and contamination, for wearing your masks. Thank you to candidates for being willing to have a public debate, and I wish you all a safe drive home. Thank you.